What if nobody could feel fear? It begins with something that doesn't happen. You wake up, and nothing feels wrong. That's the first sign, because something should feel wrong. There is always something. A thought in the back of your mind, a quiet tension, a subtle awareness that something could go wrong, that something might not be safe, that something needs attention. But this morning, there is nothing. You sit up, waiting for that familiar чувство осторожности to appear, the small hesitation before getting out of bed, the instinct to check your phone, to think about the day, to anticipate problems, risks, responsibilities. It doesn't come. Instead, there is only clarity, calm, a strange, complete absence of doubt. At first, it feels good, better than good, feels like freedom. You move through your morning without hesitation. No second thoughts, no overthinking. Decisions come instantly, effortlessly, without the usual internal resistance. You reach for something hot. No hesitación. You step outside without checking the weather. No concern. You walk across the street without looking both ways. No instinct to stop. And that is when something begins to feel different. Not wrong, but unfamiliar. Because the absence of fear removes something deeper than emotion. It removes caution. Across the world, the same moment unfolds. People wake up and move through their lives without fear. At first, it is almost invisible because fear is not something people always notice when it is present. But when it is gone, everything changes. Drivers accelerate faster. Pedestrians cross without hesitation. People take risks they would never take before, not because they want to, but because there is nothing stopping them. At first, the results are small. Minor accidents, near misses, moments that feel slightly off but not yet alarming. But then the pattern grows, because fear was not just a feeling. It was a system, a built-in response that prevented people from doing things that could harm them. And now, that system is gone. At the same time, something deeper begins to happen. Decision-making changes. Not slowly, immediately. People stop calculating risk. Not because they are incapable, but because the emotional signal that once made risk feel real is no longer there. You know something is dangerous, logically, but you do not feel it. And without that feeling, the knowledge does not stop you. At the same time, something unexpected begins to emerge. Confidence, not earned, not developed. Instant. People begin to act without hesitation, speak without doubt, move through the world with a level of certainty that was once impossible. At first, this looks like strength. Leadership becomes easier. Public speaking becomes effortless. Difficult conversations happen without avoidance, because fear is no longer there to hold people back. But something else is missing too: awareness of consequence. At the same time, something deeper begins to affect behavior. Danger becomes abstract. Concept, not an experience. You can understand that something is harmful, but you cannot feel it before it happens. And that delay matters, because fear used to act as a warning, a signal. Now the signal is gone, and the only feedback that remains is reality itself. At the same time, something unexpected begins to happen. People begin to push limits, not intentionally, but naturally. They test things, try things, explore things that once felt too risky. And because there is no fear, there is no reason to stop. At the same time, something else begins to change. Relationships, not dramatically, but subtly. People begin to speak more directly, more honestly, more openly, because they are no longer afraid of conflict, rejection, or consequences. Truth becomes easier, but empathy becomes harder, because fear also created sensitivity, awareness of how actions might affect others. Without it, people become more blunt, more immediate, less filtered. At the same time, something deeper begins to shift. Survival, because fear was not just emotional. It was biological, protected life. And now that protection is gone. At first, systems try to adapt. Rules are reinforced. Warnings are increased. But warnings rely on fear to be effective. And without fear, a warning is just information. And information does not always change behavior. At the same time, something unexpected begins to emerge. Curiosity, uncontrolled. People begin to explore things they would never approach before. Dangerous places, unstable environments, situations that once triggered immediate avoidance. Now they feel nothing, and that creates exposure, because without fear, everything feels equally safe. At the same time, something deeper begins to affect identity, because fear was part of who you were. It shaped your decisions, your boundaries, your limits, and now those limits are gone. You are no longer held back, but you are also no longer protected, and that changes how you exist in the world. As the first day comes to an end, as people begin to realize what has been lost, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. Fear was never just a weakness. It was a guide, a signal, a system that kept you within the boundaries of safety. And without it, those boundaries disappear. Because when nothing feels dangerous, everything becomes possible. And not all possibilities are safe. It does not stay liberating. That is the first thing people begin to understand as the days pass and the world continues to move without fear. At first, everything feels open. Decisions come easily. Actions happen instantly. There is no hesitation, no doubt, no внутреннего сопротивления that once slowed people down. But without hesitation, mistakes accelerate. Not because people are careless, but because they are unrestrained. The first changes appear in the smallest moments. Someone reaches too close to something dangerous. Someone ignores a warning that would have once stopped them. Someone pushes a limit they never would have tested before. At first, these are isolated events. Then they begin to repeat, and repetition becomes pattern. At the same time, something deeper begins to happen. People stop learning from risk, not intellectually, but emotionally. They can understand that something is dangerous. They can remember that something caused harm, but they do not feel it. And without feeling, the memory does not carry weight. It does not influence behavior in the same way. You know something went wrong, but you do not feel the need to avoid it next time. And that creates a cycle. Experience without adaptation. At the same time, something else begins to emerge. Bravery disappears. Not because people become weaker, but because bravery requires fear. It is the act of moving forward despite it. Without fear, there is no resistance to overcome. And without resistance, there is no courage, only action. And that action is not always meaningful, because it lacks context. At the same time, something deeper begins to affect relationships. People become more direct, more honest, more immediate, but also more disconnected. Because fear once created boundaries. It made people careful with each other. It made them consider consequences, think before speaking, adjust behavior to avoid harm. Without it, that layer is gone. Words become sharper. Actions become more abrupt. Not intentionally, but naturally, because there is no signal to slow down. At the same time, something unexpected begins to happen. Authority loses effectiveness, not because rules disappear, but because rules rely on consequence, and consequence relies on fear. If you are not afraid of what might happen, you are less likely to follow what you are told, not out of rebellion, but out of indifference, because nothing feels urgent, nothing feels dangerous, nothing feels like it must be avoided. At the same time, something deeper begins to affect large-scale systems. Safety becomes harder to maintain, not because systems fail, but because people stop responding to them. Warnings become background noise, limits become suggestions, and without emotional response, compliance decreases. At the same time, something else begins to emerge. Exploration increases, not controlled, not measured, but constant. People begin to enter places that were once restricted, not because they want to break rules, but because nothing tells them not to. They approach unstable environments, test dangerous conditions, interact with things they do not understand, and without fear, they do not stop. At the same time, something deeper begins to affect survival itself. Because survival is not just about knowledge. It is about instinct, and fear was part of that instinct. Without it, people rely only on logic. But logic takes time, and time is not always available in dangerous situations. Fear was immediate. It acted before thought. Now that reaction is gone, and the delay matters. At the same time, something unexpected begins to be missed. Hesitation, not as weakness, but as protection. The pause before action, the moment of doubt, the instinct to step back. Without it, everything moves forward, continuously, without interruption. And that continuity creates risk, because not every action should be taken. At the same time, something deeper begins to affect identity. People begin to feel incomplete, not consciously, but subtly, because fear was part of emotional balance. It worked with other emotions, creating contrast, defining intensity, shaping experience. Without it, everything becomes more neutral, less urgent, less vivid. Even excitement changes, because excitement often exists near fear. Without fear, it loses depth. At the same time, something else begins to happen. People begin to simulate fear, not physically, but mentally. They try to imagine consequences, to force hesitation, to recreate the signal that is no longer there. Some succeed, partially, others cannot, and that creates a divide between those who adapt through awareness and those who continue without restraint. At the same time, society begins to adjust, not by restoring fear, but by compensating for its absence. Stronger systems, more control, more external structure to replace what was once internal. But those systems are never perfect, because they cannot react as quickly as instinct, and instinct is gone. As time passes, the world stabilizes again, but in a different way, not safer, not more dangerous, but more dependent on conscious choice. Because now every decision requires awareness, not feeling, not instinct, but thought. And that thought must replace something that was once automatic. At the same time, a final realization begins to settle. Fear was never just about danger. It was about balance. Kept people from moving too far, too fast, too carelessly. And without it, there is nothing to slow you down, nothing to warn you, nothing to protect you before it is too late. Because when you remove fear, you do not remove danger. You only remove your ability to feel it. And that may be the most dangerous change of all.